I never expected to find my ex-husband selling tea on the train while my wife was in training. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The train rattled beneath me, a clattering steel beast in a rush to nowhere, but my heart was frozen. I was suffocating in the chaos of my own mind. Just that morning, Sarah had slipped on her uniform, the fabric crisp and sterile, her determination glowing like polished brass. Her dream was finally within reach. But here I was, seconds from seeing a ghost from my past, in the last place I expected. As I peered through the crowd, the scent of jasmine mingled with sweat and desperation. My chest tightened. There he was, Lucas, my ex-husband's man I thought I'd left behind for good. He was dressed in a faded apron, packets of herbal tea spilling from a wicker basket, offering warmth to strangers who glanced his way with curiosity mixed with uncertainty. He was a specter, haunting the small space as laughter filled the air around us. It sent shivers down my spine, pulling me into a world I thought I had escaped. I blinked, and the noise blurred. I could see every detail, the sun catching the strands of his hair, the way his hands trembled slightly as if holding on to the moment. His grin was unsettling, a curve of misplaced joy that made my stomach churn. Would anyone here even know him? Did they see the man I used to love, or just a seller of teas? My heart thudded loudly, reverberating through my whole being. And then came voices. Isn't that? Who would have thought? Whispers floated around me, sharper than knives. There was disbelief mixed with a hint of scandal. I glanced around. People were pointing, evaluating, gossiping like a pack of wolves. I suddenly felt the stares, felt tableau-like under a spotlight, an object of curiosity. I glanced toward the door, wishing to escape, to run back to my safe space, where Sarah was training, preparing to be a part of something greater. My loyalty tugged at me, pulling me like a tide. Should I go to her or face this twisted twist of fate? The air grew thick. My heart raced. It was now or never. As I took a step closer, I stumbled but caught myself, trembling hands bracing against the cool metal pole. What did he want from me? The questions burned in my mind. After all that had happened, why was he here? The thought of confronting him twisted my stomach. I'd fought so hard to put him behind me. But then, a wave of anger washed over me, quickening my breath. Was he truly here selling tea as if nothing had happened? All the memories flooded back, the heartbreak and tears. My body betrayed me, wanting to rush into the storm of drama. The train screeched to a halt, jarring me from my thoughts. The doors slid open. People flowed out, a whitewater current, and I stood still, a rock amid the chaos, staring at him. Lucas caught my gaze, his eyes wide with unrecognizable emotions. There was something there, a flicker of vulnerability, but was it really him? Before I could process what to do, he called my name. A whisper, a crack in the silence between us. The world around me faded again. My ears buzzed. Did I really want to step into this? Did I have a choice? The tension between us was palpable, alive. In that moment, I felt the weight of possibility clashing with the remnants of our shared history. And yet, I remained frozen, suspended between past and present, as the faces moved around us, unaware of the storm brewing just below the surface. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The milliseconds stretched into what felt like hours. Lucas's voice hung in the air, heavy with unspoken words, and my heart pulsated in response to that faint hint of longing swirling around us. I wanted to scream, to lash out at him, but I remained silent, grappling with emotions tangled in a spider's web of confusion. Desperately, I sought comfort in the fleeting image of Sarah. The way she'd looked that morning, the light radiating from her face, the hope in her eyes. Every fiber of my being screamed to retreat to that world where nothing felt broken or uncertain. But here I was, on a train packed with strangers, teetering on the edge of a precipice with Lucas pulling me back with every breath he took. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. I could see the hope etched into his features, his eyes searching mine, pleading. It wasn't the reaction I would have expected, considering the wreckage we had both left in our wake. My instincts told me to refuse, to walk away and reclaim my sense of normalcy, but something anchored me to the spot. Maybe it was the memories that rushed back, good and bad battling for dominance in my mind. Or perhaps it was the undeniable fact that I owed him something, if only to unravel the tapestry of our shared past. My feet moved before my brain could protest, leading me to stand before him in the midst of chaos. His hands reached for a packet of tea, the packaging crinkling under the weight of his nervous grip. "I'm sorry for surprising you like this," he started, his words stumbling over each other. I didn't think I'd see you here." "You shouldn't be," I replied, the words sharper than I intended. I saw his flinch, but it didn't soften the pain bubbling beneath the surface. I was drowning in a torrent of resentment and a strange, twisted nostalgia that a part of me thought you were gone, he murmured, casting his gaze to the floor. "But now I see you here, and I don't know how to feel." He looked up, and his eyes shimmered with an emotion I had rarely seen, raw vulnerability, stripped of the bravado and defenses he usually wore. "Yes, you don't know how to feel. That's what you do best, isn't it?" The words slipped out like daggers, fueled by years of buried pain. I didn't want to hurt him, yet I couldn't help it. This interaction felt like stepping on a landmine. "Please," he murmured, his voice cracking. "I'm trying to change. I'd like a chance to explain." The sincerity tugged at my chest, but could I really trust anything he said? I wanted to believe it was genuine, but the whispers in my mind reminded me of the broken promises. Before I could respond, a flash of dark hair caught my eye, a familiar face emerging from the crowd. Sarah. My heart raced, panic surging through my veins. She waved enthusiastically, her face glowing with the thrill of her new journey. Was she close enough to hear us? My thoughts spiraled as I reluctantly turned my gaze back to Lucas. "Please, don't," I whispered urgently, fear threading my voice. "I can't have her see us like this." The weight of both our realities crashed down upon me, the fragility of this moment too intense to bear. Lucas took a step back, confusion wrinkling his brow. "You're still with her?" "Yes. I'm still with her," I replied, an edge of desperation creeping into my voice as Sarah's footsteps grew louder. "And I'm trying to build something real, something she deserves. But now here you are, messing everything up. What are you so afraid of?" Lucas shot back, his eyes blazing. "That you'll fall back into the same patterns? Or maybe," a sharp intake of breath caught in my throat. "Maybe what?" I demanded, but the flames of frustration in my chest flickered with a hint of his questioning that exposed a deeper insecurity. Before he could answer, Sarah materialized beside me, her vibrant presence slicing through the tension. "Hey, who are you talking to?" Her eyes shifted from me to Lucas, recognition dawning. I felt the fabric of my carefully constructed life shift, the seams unraveling as the truth bubbled. But Lucas stepped forward, his familiar voice rising above mine. "I'm just offering some tea," he said, forcing a nonchalant smile. "Nothing to worry about." The falsehood hung in the air, prickly and potent. The surprise mirrored in Sarah's gaze was undeniable. "Is that Lucas?" Time froze as a storm of emotions brewed inside me. Sarah's confusion morphed into something sharp and questioning. Was she already aware of the hidden scars, the truth I had kept buried? Suddenly, the ground felt unstable beneath us. The world spun, and I was caught in a web of past and present, terrified of the fallout waiting to erupt. Lucas glanced between us, uncertainty clouding his eyes, and I couldn't help but feel that everything was spiraling out of control. The secrets, the hurt, the accusations, they all collided in one overwhelming moment. I wished I could pull Sarah into my arms and shield her from this tempest, but I stood paralyzed, staring at the fracture before me, and as the train jolted again, drowning the world in sound, a cold realization gripped my heart. I was in a tangled web with no escape. With every heartbeat, I could feel the unraveling ahead. The sound of the train wheels clattered against the tracks, drowning out the rising tension. Sarah stood there, confusion etched across her face as she sorted through the layers of this unexpected tableau. I felt myself trembling, the panic clawing at my throat, while Lucas maintained an unsettling air of calmness that only fueled my rising anxiety. "Lucas?" Sarah finally managed, the hesitation in her voice betraying her confusion. "What are you doing here?" I could feel all the threads of my carefully crafted life pulling taut, threatening to snap at any moment. "He's just," I started, but nothing came to me, no explanation that could smooth over this disaster. The words tripped over one another as they fought for breath in my lungs. "Just what?" "Selling tea?" Her voice was sharp, and I sensed the shift from casual curiosity to something more serious. "It's not what it looks like," I rushed out, desperation spilling over. "We were just having a moment, talking about the past." It felt like a flimsy explanation that wouldn't hold under scrutiny, the truth a bubbling cauldron waiting to overflow. "That I think I deserve to know what the past entails, don't you?" Sarah shot back, crossing her arms and jolting me with her intensity. Her presence was a solid anchor, but right now, I felt the ground shifting beneath me, and there was no stability to be found. Lucas, ever the opportunist, stepped forward, trying to regain some semblance of control. "Listen, Sarah. I didn't mean for our paths to cross like this. I just wanted to see what if you could upend our lives again." I interrupted, anger weaving itself into the fibers of my fear. The last thing we needed was Lucas inserting himself into our lives like a rogue element set to derail everything. Sarah's gaze pinned me to the spot, searching for the truth reflected in my eyes. "Is this someone you've been hiding?" The words were cautious yet cutting, and I could feel the heartache rising within me, a symphony of regret and unspoken truths carving deeper lines into my conscience. "That it was a mistake," I blurted out, the weight of my confession pressing down on my chest. "A time in my life I tried to move past. I thought I could grow and build something better with you." I could see the hurt in her eyes, the realization that the fabric of our love story was stained with secrets. In that moment, Lucas stepped back, the hurt from my words illuminating his own vulnerability. "I didn't come here to hurt you," he said softly, lost in his own fragile whirlwind. "I just wanted to know if we could try to make amends." I took a breath, my heart aching with the fragility of the situation. "Amends?" My voice cracked, the weight of bitterness forcing its way free. "How do we make amends for a history that nearly ruined me? What good can come from reopening wounds that never really healed?" Lucas lowered his head, and I saw the flicker of something that could have been guilt, or was it desperation? "I don't know," he replied, the confession almost drowning beneath the swell of the train's noise. "But if there's one thing I've learned, sometimes the past is where the answers lie." Sarah steeled herself, the fight leaving her eyes for a brief moment. "What would that even look like?" She spoke softly, searching for clarity in the chaos as she turned to me. "Would you want to be friends with him? What does that mean for us?" Caught between two versions of my life, the hurtful past with Lucas and the hope-filled present with Sarai, felt like I was caught in a storm too volatile to navigate. "I don't know," I whispered, the truth echoing in the hollow space between us, crushing my spirit. Lucas' gaze flickered between us, concern painted across his features. He reached out as if to touch my arm but stopped short, almost as if he feared I might shatter in his presence. "I don't want to meddle. I just want you to know I'm not the same person I was. I've changed. I've been working on myself." His words ignited a tiny flame of hope, one that flickered and then dimmed beneath the weight of skepticism weighing down my heart. Could he truly mean it? Would it matter in the long run? Sarah took a step back, her expression unreadable as she processed everything. "If we're going to move forward, we need transparency," she said finally. "All of it. Because I can't carry someone else's secrecy into our lives again." The word sobered me, realization slicing through the haze. I had been so focused on the past that I hadn't recognized the shadows it cast on my present. "I'll tell you everything," I promised, my heart racing at the thought of laying it all bare, but before I could continue, the train lurched violently, the jarring motion causing us all to stumble as the lights flickered. In that disorienting moment, Sarah's hand slipped from mine, and I turned to see panic shadowing her face. "Is everything all right?" I asked, dread pooling in my stomach as the conductor's urgent voice filled the car, warning folks to stay calm due to a technical issue ahead. Just then, Lucas's hand brushed against mine in a fleeting moment of contact, something unbidden stirring between us. My heart flipped, that unwanted connection reigniting all the confusion within me as I recalled the warmth of what we once were, now colliding violently with the warmth of Sarah's steady love. The train slowed, the air charged with uncertainty and fear, and as I locked eyes with Sarah, an unmistakable understanding passed between us. The distance had widened, but the real work was yet to come, and then, as if propelled by fate, it happened. A deep, piercing scream sliced through the air. Everything changed in an instant. The atmosphere shifted palpably, suffocating and electric, as the scream punctured the steady rhythm of the train. A collective gasp echoed through the carriage, faces turned towards the source of the commotion. I felt my heart lurch, an audible thunder of uncertainty rattling through me that drowned out all rational thought. "Stay here." I heard the conductor shout amid the rising chaos. "Everyone, please stay calm." His voice cracked against the panic, echoing like a feeble lifeline cast into turbulent waters. "What was that?" Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper now, edged with fear as we instinctively moved closer together, her touch grounding me in this storm. In that moment, the intensity of our previous conversation faded, overshadowed by something darker looming ahead. "I have no idea," I murmured, scanning the carriage for movement. Was it a prank? A real emergency? My pulse quickened, and despite everything that had just transpired, my focus remained fixed on Sarah, the warmth of her presence steadying my racing heart. Lucas seemed to zone out, his face a mixture of concern and apprehension. I noticed his eyes flicker to the swaying figures of passengers, each one grappling with their own brand of fear, and I felt a sudden rush of clarity wash over me. Lucas didn't belong in this moment. He was a specter of my past, a girlhood ghost that had now re-emerged, and in the chaos, I needed to prioritize what was in front of me. "Stay close," I said softly to both of them, glancing at Sarah, who wore a brave expression, but I could see the crack of vulnerability that exposed her internal struggle. "Let's stick together." Minutes felt like hours as the tension enveloped the train like a thick fog. The conductor rushed back through the aisle, urgency etched into his features as he barked orders to passengers, directing them to gather in the center of the car while assuring us that help was on the way. "Please, I need everyone to remain calm while we assess the situation," he pleaded, but the warning sounded like echoes of despair resonating darkly in my mind. I couldn't ignore the creeping sense of impending dread, the awareness that we were trapped in a metal fortress hurtling along the tracks. "The lights." Sarah gasped, and I followed her gaze to see the harsh white fluorescence sputter above us, seconds away from extinguishing completely. Panic surged like wildfire through the carriage as I felt my own control slip away. "Just breathe, Sarah," I choked out, willing myself to project strength that I was desperately trying to summon from within. "We'll get through this. Just hold on." Just then, a group of concerned passengers arose, moving towards the front to check what lay ahead. But before they could take more than a few steps, another terrified scream rang out, this time from a child. I clenched my fists and swiveled toward Lucas. "What do you want?" I almost yelled, the words escaping before I could catch my breath. "What do you want from us?" The flicker of fear and guilt flared in his eyes. I just wanted what?" I pressed, my voice rising above the chaos. "To rip the already frayed seams of our lives further apart?" The hurtful words spilled out, each one a shard that sliced deeper into the tension between us. With shaky breaths, Sarah interjected, "This isn't the time for that." But the sentiment felt futile against the backdrop of panic mounting all around us. Suddenly, Lucas stepped forward, and I felt the air grow quiet around him. "I'm sorry. I know I'm the last person you want to see, but I didn't mean to disrupt your lives." Then why are you here?" Sarah's voice cut through, surprising me with its strength. "If you really wanted to change, why now? Why disrupt us?" I felt every word resonate like an echo of doubt in my own heart. Lucas was still digging in the past, and the future we were trying to build together felt perilously fragile. "Just to let you know that I am here if you need me," he conceded, a painful flicker of longing sparking behind his eyes. "To show that I am trying to change for the better. That I'm not the same person I once was." As he spoke, the lights above us flickered out completely, kissing the carriage in an enveloping darkness that swallowed my next thoughts. Gasps filled the air, confusion and vulnerability amplifying the resonance of shared fear. "Stay close," I called out again, my voice strained but desperate as I felt Sarah tugging at my sleeve. But before I could finish, the sudden jolt of the train came, throwing me off balance. I reached instinctively for Sarah, just as panicked shadows materialized around us. Then, a voice broke through the murmurs of uncertainty, a stern and clipped command emanating from the front of the carriage. "Everyone, listen. We have an emergency situation. Remain where you are." My eyes locked onto Sarah, seeing the flicker of fear mirrored back at me, and just as I opened my mouth to reassure her, a loud crash erupted from the front, followed by frantic footsteps racing towards our end. What had we stumbled into? As disbelief nestled in my chest, a certainty settled too. This wasn't just an inconvenience. Something far more menacing loomed just beyond the veil of darkness. And I had a sinking feeling that the truth I wanted to expose could be the very thing that unraveled us all in this moment. My heart hammered in my chest as the abrupt crash radiated waves of chaos throughout the carriage, the darkness tangibly thickening around us. The desperate directive from the front only heightened the urgency of the moment. We were caught in a storm with no end in sight, Evelyn. I wished I could reach out to the unknown cargo, to echo the vortex of fear that wrapped us. What could happen next? Beneath the din, I caught hold of the worry twisting in Sarah's brow, her grip on my sleeve tightening as if she feared for our lives and the integrity of what was left of us. Panic-fueled steps approached us, and I held my breath. Each pounding footfall felt like a countdown to something unimaginable. "Stay together," I insisted, trying to ground myself as much as her, driven by the adrenaline thrumming through me. Just then, a figure bolted past, skidding to a halt mere feet from us, breathless and wild-eyed. "There's been an incident. Stay down," he shouted, voice slicing through the noise. My instincts screamed rage and terror as I struggled to make sense of everything unfurling. Was this a freak accident, or had we wandered into something far darker? I stole a quick glance at Lucas, whose face had paled, the courage he tried to muster now cowered beneath layers of fear. And for a flicker of a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. The weight of my resentment hung like a shadow behind me, but it was eclipsed by the immediate need to protect what mattered most. A sharp gasp drew my attention back to Sarah, who pointed toward the rear of the carriage where dim light battled against the enveloping darkness. "Look!" she cried. Beyond the press of bodies and fear, a figure emerged, silhouetted against the ambient glow. "Is it?" I felt goosebumps prick at my arms. A small boy, lost, sobbing amidst the collective hysteria. At once, a visceral surge of warmth and outrage coursed through me, overshadowing everything else. "Somebody help him!" I called out, the urgency igniting a flame within me. That unmoored child was a spark, a reminder of everything vulnerable. I nudged past Lucas and reached for Sarah's hand, feeling her grip respond in a way that promised solidarity in the fray of uncertainty. Before we could fully process it, more voices joined the chaos, adult figures launching into the fray, though the shadows around us made it nearly impossible to track who was who. "Stay back!" someone barked, blocking the path toward the little boy, which intensified the swell of anxiety crashing through the crowd. In that chaos of hidden faces, Sarah's eyes shimmered with bravery, and I was reminded of her strength, how even when the ground beneath us shook, she had a way of standing tall with unwavering resolve. "We can't leave him," she breathed, resolve swelling in her voice. "Okay," I nodded, heart racing. "Let's go." With Sarah steadfast at my side and a silent agreement passing between us, we advanced into the swirling darkness. I turned just as Lucas took a hesitant step forward. "Wait," he called gently, his voice breaking through the clamor. "No. Stay back." I snapped, a fire igniting within me. My heart raced for a multitude of reasons. The scars of our past strained against the immediacy of the moment, yet the fragility of our situation stirred a sense of urgency far more pressing. "This isn't about you right now." As we closed the distance to the boy, another crash echoed, sending vibrations through the train. A series of panicked cries erupted, reverberating what lay beneath the surface of our collective dread. I dropped down beside the young boy, whose tears carved paths down his cheeks. "Hey, buddy," I whispered, trying to infuse calm in the storm around us, "you're safe now. We're here." I reached out gently, but the boy recoiled, eyes wide with fear. "Please don't hurt me," he cried, and my heart twisted at the innocent plea layered with anguish. No. Sarah joined me, her voice soft yet steady. "We're not going to hurt you. We're here to help. What's your name?" But before he could answer, a clash resonated through the carriage, this time louder, more violent, just as the lights flickered back on, blinding in their brightness. It was disorienting, chaotic, revealing panicked faces and scattered belongings. "What in the world?" I gasped, pulling back to take it all in. The realization stuck in my throat when I spotted a figure amidst the frightened masses, familiar and unwelcome, my ex-husband, solemnly clutching a cardboard box of tea bags, his vacant gaze fixed on me as if I were the reason the world had spun into chaos. In that moment, all the weight of the past crested like a tidal wave, crashing into the tender dynamic I had with Sarah, the fragile heart of our present. I couldn't process it fully, but I was sure of something. Every tender moment built with Sarah now stood jeopardized, each thread of love I'd woven risked unraveling beneath the unfurl of unresolved history. All I could do was stare, with both fear and fury blazing within me, at the embodiment of my past mistakes, and I couldn't shake the haunting thought of what this intruder could mean for our future. The crackling tension in the air felt as palpable as the distinct aroma of adrenaline washing over me. I was suspended in time, caught between a past that clung like an unwelcome shroud and a present that held Sarah's unwavering gaze, both filled with looming dread and a flicker of urgency. Just behind me, the little boy trembled, still unsure of the safety I was desperate to provide. "Evelyn." My ex-husband called sharply, his expression shifting between outrage and disbelief as if I were the source of his catastrophe. The sound of my name echoed like a curse through the thrumming chaos, and in that single breath, everything I had worked so hard to escape collided brutally with all I so desperately wanted to protect. "Stay behind me, okay?" I murmured to the boy, still crouched low. My protective instincts roared to life. I needed to shield him from the looming threat that was my past, the specter of who I used to be, the ghosts of mistakes unburied. As if sensing my determination, Sarah pulled me back toward the boy, her voice a steady beacon amidst the storm. "Let's focus on him. He needs us right now." But the weight of every unsaid word and unresolved issue with my ex loomed over us like a dark cloud. "Evelyn," he shouted again, eyes narrowing. "This is ridiculous. You really think you can just run away from me and live a happy little life? Just look where you are." His words sliced through my heart, raw and accusatory, igniting the resentment that simmered just below the surface. I wanted to hurl back an argument, to explain to him that it wasn't just about the choices I made, it was about the life I fought for, the life I shared with Sarah. But in truth, standing there in the midst of the disaster, all I could do was draw breath, fearful of the endless possibilities that awaited us after this moment. A set of hands found my shoulders, and the warm pressure drew me back. I met Sarah's eyes, searching for solace. "We need to get him to safety," she said, her expression tender yet fierce. There was something almost electric in that moment, her belief in us, in what we could navigate together despite the chaos unraveling around us. Why were you even here? I shot back at my ex, the venom spilling out like toxic waste. A tea convention? It felt trivial, the irony of it all, but my heart knew that the real question hovered just beneath the surface. Was he still trying to insinuate himself back into my life? He chuckled bitterly, his jaw clenched. You'll always be drawn to disarray, won't you? He gestured toward the turmoil surrounding us, his words striking a deeper chord than I wanted to admit. Can you never have a moment of peace? Before I could respond, a dispiriting voice broke through, echoing from the front of the carriage. Everyone needs to evacuate. Stay calm and move toward the exits. Panic ripped through the crowd, a tidal wave of bodies surging as people began to push and shove toward the doors. The boy whimpered beside me, his small frame trembling with fear, and it was at that moment the world began to crumble around our small trio. Come on! I shouted above the clamor, reaching out to the boy with one hand while tugging Sarah's arm with the other. We have to move, but suddenly, just as we made to stand, my ex stepped forward, blocking our path. You're taking him with you? He said incredulously, disbelief stringing his tone like a thread that threatened to snap. What about my family? Do you really believe you have any right to dictate this? I interrupted, dimly aware that my anger was reaching a boiling point. This isn't your moment. Your family is tangled in what you left behind or what you destroyed. With a flick of his wrist, he gestured behind him, and concurrently, a new voice pierced through the fray. Hey! Evacuation now! A burly man in a bright vest pushed through the throng, eyes hard as steel, commanding. I felt Sarah's hand grinding against mine, a reminder to rein in my emotions. We can't waste time, she urged, her voice steady as she aimed it at the shivering boy, willing him to listen. You have to trust us. We're going to help. The boy nodded, finally finding a flicker of trust amid the growing chaos. But just as we gathered ourselves to push forward again, the lights began to flicker, and the atmosphere thickened with an ethereal tension that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. My gaze darted to my ex, who appeared momentarily distracted, caught in his own web of turmoil. As we slipped past him, an inexplicable crash echoed once more, and the sudden silence that followed was more deafening than the chaos itself. I turned back instinctively, heart racing, and the sight that met my eyes was one I hadn't dared anticipate. There, leaning against the exit door, was Sarah, her expression contorted with fear, her form suddenly rigid. Evelyn, she whispered, soft yet laden with dread. Something's wrong. Behind her, shadows began to gather, dancing ominously at the periphery of my vision, drawing closer with each passing heartbeat, twisting my insides into knot after knot. It was as if the terrible darkness had manifested, determined to consume us all. Move! I shouted, urgency slicing through my veins, and the world around us began to spiral. But no matter how fast I ran, I could feel the sinister grip of the past tightening around me, and my heart ached with an unbearable sense of impending doom. What did this mean for us? Just as awareness of the danger coalesced in my mind, I locked eyes with my ex one last time, and I saw it fleetly, a flicker of something darker in his gaze, a sly smile that chilled me to the bone, wrapping me in an unsettling sense of déjà vu. This wasn't just an incident on a train. This was an opening act, and the show was far from over. The urgent shouts reverberating through the train station melded into a cacophony that engulfed us. I could feel the chaotic pulse of panic rippling around the cramped space, yet my focus zeroed in on the crystal blue of Sarah's wide eyes, reflecting fear and confusion. Evelyn, she pleaded, her voice breaking through the fog of uncertainty clinging to my mind. We can't stand here. We have to move now. A primal instinct kicked in, propelling me into action. I snagged the boy's small hand, tight enough to reassure him but not so tight that it hurt. Stay close, I instructed, glancing back at Sarah, who nodded with urgency, her brow drawn together in determination. Each step we took felt heavy, and the thrumming in my chest grew louder each second, syncing with the pounding footsteps of panicking passengers searching for a way out. I pushed forward, but a nagging sensation rippled through me. A glance over my shoulder revealed my ex-husband's presence, a specter of the life I had desperately turned my back on. "Evelyn," he shouted, voice laced with spite. "You're making a huge mistake. You don't know who you're getting involved with." The boy audibly squeaked at the sharpness in his tone, and I squeezed his hand a little tighter. "Shoo, we're safe. Just keep moving," I cooed to the child, forcing my own fears down as we continued to navigate the crush of people. Every ounce of my attention was focused on getting us all to safety. Sarah prodded me forward, her arm brushing against mine as she guided us toward an emergency exit that flickered dimly at the far end of the aisle. There was something almost electric in her reassurance, a contrast to the chaotic rumble surrounding us. Then, without warning, the air shifted. A loud crash erupted from behind us, the sound penetrating the panic like a knife, and instinctively, I turned to look only to witness the train lurch violently, the whole carriage vibrating beneath our feet. The terrified screams of passengers escalated, a blend of fear and chaos that felt as tangible as the air I was gasping for. My heart lurched. We couldn't afford to be caught in the crush of the mob, but the threat felt acute. "Let's go," I urged again, pushing the boy ahead of me, adrenaline surging through my veins. As we breached the threshold of the exit, I froze momentarily, horrified to see nothing. Complete darkness. The emergency exit led to a narrow, dimly lit aisle, but at the end of it? Uncertainty. It felt like a portal leading to an abyss rather than safety. "Evelyn." My ex's voice loomed behind us, a mixture of desperation and something darker, far more sinister. "You'll regret this. I'm not letting you get away." An icy shiver trickled down my spine at his words, and I felt Sarah's fingers twitch against mine, grounding me. "We have to decide. Now." Her voice rose above the frantic yells around us, unyielding. The boy's trembling hand in mine brought me focus, and I knelt to his level. "We can go," I emphasized, making eye contact, ensuring he understood. "But it means stepping into the darkness. Can you do that?" "I promise I won't let go." He hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing his fearful features. "But what if it's a trap?" he whispered, words painted with innocence that I couldn't blame him for questioning it. My own heart mirrored his fear. "Sometimes, little ones, you have to walk through the dark to find the light." And finally, in that moment of truth, he nodded. I felt Sarah squeeze my arm, her belief fortifying mine. "We could face this together. One step at a time," I murmured to the boy, and we moved, edging toward the shadows. But just as we began to enter the darkness, a piercing shriek echoed, drawing my attention back to the chaos. My ex-husband had pressed forward, the storm of resentment brewing in his eyes. "You'll all see. This isn't over." The shriek that followed sent ripple shocks through my soul, a mix of dread and horror stealing my breath. "Evelyn!" Sarah cried out, her voice filled with alarm. I whipped around. In the dim hallway, shadows coalesced and emerged, a shadowy figure launching itself into the fray. I realized with horror that it was not my ex-husband alone. Another person had joined the fray, a tall figure clad in black, a face concealed, rushing toward us with foreboding intent. The boy clutched my arm, and the darkness ahead now held a protective shroud for us. "Keep going," I screamed, pushing forward. But a sense of finality gnawed at me. What awaited on the other side of the darkness? A lapse in judgment? A lingering past? As I pushed into the abyss, adrenaline coursed through me, coupled with a fervent prayer. I had to find a way to save us, and just before we crossed into the unknown, the grating echo of my ex-husband's laughter rang through the chaos, a sound reminiscent of a time long past, a reminder that the darkness didn't merely lie ahead. It resided within the soul that was supposed to protect me. It would never truly let go. The moment we crossed into the darkness, an overwhelming sensation enveloped us. My heart raced as the chill of the corridor seeped into my bones. We couldn't linger, we had to keep moving. But anxiety gnawed at my stomach as uncertainty closed in like a vice. I was acutely aware of Sarah's hand squeezed tightly around mine as if drawing strength from our connection. "What's happening, Evelyn?" the boy whispered, his voice trembling against the hushed sounds of chaos behind us. "Just a little further," I reassured him, my own voice betraying the uncertainty that churned within. I was a mother, protector of this child and Sarah, but I felt eerily unprepared to face what might await us. As we pressed deeper, the shadows around us writhed in the flickering light. With every shuddering step, I felt the weight of my ex-husband's threats encroaching like a phantom, whispering memories of a past I was desperate to escape. With every brush of our feet against the grimy floor, I was reminded of promises broken, a life of dissatisfaction and fear. But Sarah was resolute, her unwavering presence soaring through the suffocating encroachment. "We can find a way out. Just stick together," she said, voice low yet fiery. Suddenly, a faint light appeared ahead, casting shapes that danced against the walls. I strained to make out what lay beyond it. Was it salvation? Or simply another part of this labyrinth of despair? "Wait," I cautioned, earning questioning glances from my companions. "Let's listen." They nodded, and we halted at the edge of the glow. A low murmur drifted to us, unsettling yet inviting. It sounded like voices raised in distress. I felt a momentary flicker of hope, but it was snuffed out swiftly. The urgency of the situation weighed too heavily in the silence that followed. "Can you hear that?" I whispered, but before we could respond, a heavy thud echoed behind us, footfalls, accompanied by sharp, frantic breaths that fueled my growing trepidation. "No," I urged, eyes darting toward the emptiness we had fled. The echoes of my ex-husband's taunts haunted me, intertwining with the very shadows we sought to evade. "Evelyn," Sarah implored, snapping me back to the present. "We need to make a decision. We need to go. We have to go now," I blurted, pulling the boy closer as I steeled myself. Without waiting for an answer, we surged forward into the looming light. Emerging into the illuminated area, I was struck by the sight before us, a small, half-dilapidated waiting room, eerily abandoned save for a few scattered chairs and the remnants of forgotten belongings. A cracked clock ticked sluggishly on the wall, the sound echoing like a heartbeat in the stillness, adding to the surreal atmosphere. Were we safe? A sanctuary, or merely a pit stop in an escalating nightmare? As I moved further in, I spotted a group huddled in the far corner, faces shadowed yet familiar. My breath hitched as recognition set in. These were people connected to both our pasts and further complications of our tangled lives. Why would they be here? But the moment was fleeting, as I caught the fearful gaze of the boy in the midst of it all. He looked at me, his eyes darting back to the door, unsure of the safety of this newfound refuge. "Evelyn," he squeaked, a plea laced in confusion. "This isn't good," I murmured, feeling fear knot in my stomach. Behind us, the darkness loomed nearer, hungry and vast, but in front of us, shadows of the past threatened to engulf the present. My heart raced with the crescendos of uncertainty, granted no reprieve. Before I could respond further, the door slammed open with a crash, sending a ripple through our small fate. A tall figure stepped through, their silhouette unmistakable despite the washed-out light. My ex-husband stood there, eyes wild like a cornered animal glistening with unpredictable intent. "Going somewhere?" He smirked, the cruel confidence in his expression cutting like glass. "You thought you could escape me so easily?" The boy instinctively clutched my hand tighter, and I felt Sarah tense beside me. This was the reckoning we had sought to avoid. And now, with nowhere to run, the stakes were higher than ever. The space around me began to spiral with panic, memories of why I left him painting a poignant picture in my Minda life shrouded in fear, like an endless battlefield I refused to return to. But as my ex-husband stepped closer, a voice from the corner erupted in uncertainty. "Don't do this, Frank. They're just trying to get away." I turned, shocked to see faces filling the room with shared concern, yet fear shrouded their expressions. Fear fueled by my past. My breath quickened, and the boy finally whimpered, "What's happening?" The innocence in his voice struck like a tether to my soul, pulling me away from the chaos that threatened to ensnare us entirely. "Stay close," I said through gritted teeth. My heart raced faster than the time slipping away from us. If my past was trapped within this moment, then I would break free. I had to protect them. Every choice has its consequence. You've walked straight into my web, Evelyn, my ex snarled, hands trembling with both eagerness and rage. His dark gaze fell over Sarah next, and the warmth of camaraderie I felt for her only heightened my resolve. As he stepped forward, the group behind me shifted restlessly, and at that instant, my heart plunged with clarity. This was more than about escape now. This was about standing my ground, commanding my reality, my choices. Sudden emotion bubbled within me as I realized, I still had one weapon that could stand against him: hope. The flickering courage that came from knowing I wasn't alone and that together we could confront the shadows of the past. Sarah, we'll face this together, I whispered fiercely, drawing on the strength born of our bond. With panic swirling around us and uncertainty pressing in, I realized this was only the beginning. As light and dark converged, I could not predict where this path would lead, but one truth stood firmly in my heart: I would not allow my past to dictate our future. What awaited us in the confrontation to come felt monumental, and somewhere in that reflection I understood darkness held its own form of light. And just as I felt the weight of my resolve gather momentum, a sharp scream pierced the air outside, drowning the moment, sending us all into another spiral of dread. Time ticked forward relentlessly, but so did fate. The moment had come to confront not just my husband, but the very fabric of choices intertwined with love and loss, and as chaos continued to unfold, the echoes of the past spiraled into the present in a way I never expected. The darkness pressed around us, thickening like fog as every breath weighed heavier than the last. My heart pounded in sync with the dreadful realization that this was a turning point I hadn't prepared for. Frank's presence loomed, casting a shadow larger than himself, permeating my very thoughts with remnants of doubt. The scream outside reverberated in my chest, spiraling my nerves. I could sense the fragile hope I had not long cultivated begin to tremor. What was that? I whispered to Sarah, trying to anchor my spiraling thoughts. Beside me, the boy clung closer, eyes wide with confusion and fear. We have to stay strong, Sarah murmured, her voice unwavering though I could see the flicker of uncertainty in her own eyes. We've made it this far. Frank stepped further into the room, and for a moment, amidst the rising tension, time stood still. I caught a glimpse of the man I once loved, and all the memories washed over me like the tide. The first time he smiled, the thrill of new beginnings, the promise of forever, only to shatter into shards of reality that cut deeper than I ever imagined. How sweet of you to hold hands, Evelyn. It almost makes me nostalgic, he taunted, his grin growing wider, cruel. But let's not pretend you found your happy ending. You're still stuck with me. You know, this isn't just about you anymore, Frank. I shouted back, the urgency pushing me forward. You're not the central figure in our lives, you're the ghost we're trying to escape. The group stirred at that, a ripple of shared understanding knitting us into a fragile alliance. Covert glances flew between allies and enemies alike. Hope glimmered in their eyes as Frank's bravado faltered for the briefest of moments. Behind him, a woman I recognized stepped from the shadows. Maria, a former acquaintance from our neighborhood, her face pale but resolute, had always been one to embody quiet strength. You need to leave them alone, Frank, she urged, voice steady despite the palpable tension. This isn't a game. He laughed, a deep, hollow sound that echoed off the chipped walls. A game? You think this is about games, Maria? No, this is about control, and I will not let go. Not now, not ever. I felt the warmth of the boy's small hand tighten around mine, his unspoken fears crawling along my skin. Evelyn, what's happening? He repeated, desperation haunting his words. I knelt before him, forcing myself to meet his gaze. We are stronger than him. Remember that. Just stay close. As I spoke, a wave of determination surged through me, laced with fierce love. I glanced at Sarah, who nodded ever so slightly, echoing a shared resolve. We matched our strength, a silent promise binding us together, and just as the air crackled with unspoken tension, another scream pierced through the dimness, a shrill echo that signaled chaos was not confined to the shadows of our past but now threatened to engulf the present. Enough! Frank hissed, hands clenched, shadows flickering across his face as he shifted his focus between us, calculating his next move. In that brief window, the atmosphere shifted. The claustrophobic room filled with an anxious energy, an almost palpable wave of shared fears and determination, and for a moment, the weight pressed upon us shifted. We had limits. His cruelty would not dictate our boundaries any longer. What if they don't play by your rules? Maria questioned, stepping forward, her voice unwavering in the face of darkness. What if we don't follow you anymore? What then? Panic flashed across Frank's features. A moment's hesitation hunched his shoulders inwards, and I steadied my breath, sensing an opening in the chaos. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from another corridor, reverberating through the room and startling everyone. The flickering lights momentarily dimmed, throwing us into uncertainty as a figure slipped through the door, their silhouette bold against the backdrop of shadows. "Who is it?" Sarah whispered urgently, darting her gaze toward the newcomer, but before we could discern more, the light flared back to life, illuminating a young girl no more than 10 years old, with a wild mane of hair and eyes brimming with defiance. She charged forward, stopping just before Frank. "Get away from them!" The girl shouted, unwavering and brave as if she were a shield against darkness itself. "What are you doing here?" Frank barked, surprise mixed with anger in his voice. "You shouldn't be anywhere near this. Watch me," she retorted, voice filled with confidence that belied her age. She glanced at me and the boy, her eyes sparkling with an almost familiar warmth. The moment felt electric, charged with possibility as new alliances began to form. The echoes of her words hung in the air, carving a space for hope to seep through the cracks of despair. But as swift as a breath, Frank recovered, his formidable veneer returning with unyielding fervor. "You think you can stand against me?" His voice dripped with contempt as he stepped toward her. "Maybe it's not about standing against you, Frank," I found myself shouting amid the swirling energy. "It's about standing together. Well, face this." Just as tension reached its boiling point, the boy behind me let out a cry, a blend of fear and defiance, a breaking of silence that enveloped us all in its weight. And then, as if orchestrated by the forces of fate, the lights flickered once more, and beneath the sharp clarity of the moment came the sudden realization that more figures lurked beyond the door, stepping forth into a landscape of undeniable chaos, a gathering of past and present, intertwined in ways we never expected. "Help us, please!" I cried out, my voice rising in desperation. As their faces emerged from the shadows, hope intertwined with suspicion. What awaited us, I feared, would alter the very course of our fragmented lives forever. The answer to that question lay just beyond the threshold, but for now, we were caught between worlds, unsure of what the future held, and in the face of it all, fear and hope blossomed side by side, entwined in a delicate dance of some profound reckoning yet to come. Everything hurt. My heart thudded heavily as I stood amidst the shadows. Nothing prepared me for the chaos I had just witnessed, the mingling of my past and present swirling like an unpredictable storm. Fragments of memories and emotions collided within me, each one desperate to be felt, forgiven, or forgotten. There he stood, Frank, my ex-husband, a specter of regret and bitterness. Together, we had sculpted a life built on unbearable tensions. Yet here we were, camouflaged within a theater of uncertainty, woven together by an invisible thread of twisted love and pain, but I was not that lost girl anymore. The strength I felt beside me emanated from Sarah and the boy, now guardians of my heart's fragile core. Their presence grounded me, reminding me that I had a family now, one that started anew, built on shared dreams and undeniable trust. "Evelyn." Frank's voice was sharp, slicing through the tension, and yet the echo of nostalgia struck me as painfully familiar. "You can't ignore your roots. You'll always return to where you belong." I wanted to scream back at him, to tell him that he was wrong, so wrong. "You don't own me, Frank. I'm not your possession to claim. This life belongs to me and those I choose to love." The young girl, standing fierce and unyielding before Frank, offered an unexpected sense of solidarity. With her wild mane and defiant stance, she felt like a beacon of hope amid rising darkness. None of us will be defined by you. We won't give in to your chaos. Frank faltered for the first time. For the first time, he seemed a little unsure, caught between fury and the realization that perhaps his grip was loosening. Keep her out of this, his voice dripped with venom, his focus shifting between USA predator fooled by newfound ferocity and our unity. Maybe it's time you understood the truth, Maria interjected, stepping forward with fierce determination. The past doesn't dictate our future. You don't have that power anymore. The room crackled with unanswered questions. Frank's shadow loomed large, but the warmth in my heart surged stronger. There were people standing with us now, people willing to reclaim their lives from the clutches of darkness, breathing life into fractured memories. Suddenly the boy squeezed my hand tighter, breaking through the haze. We have each other. No one can take that away. His innocent determination ignited something deep within me, reminding me of a truth I had almost forgotten. Love was ultimately a choice, a rebellion against despair. Together, I said firmly. We are stronger together, and all you wield is fear that we can conquer. With every breath, the air thickened as if punctuated by resolution. I could feel Sarah's unwavering trust enveloping me, wrapping around our hearts like armor. Just then, a commotion erupted from the entrance. A large, imposing figure rushed in, bearing authority and conviction. The fear that had hesitated earlier was now palpable. The figure raised a badge, illuminating the disarray around us in sharp clarity. Everyone. I need you to step back. It was a rescue team, arriving not a moment too soon. The wave of relief spilling into the room manifested tangible energy, dismantling the stale echoes of despair surrounding us. I watched as Frank stumbled backward, the facade of control crumbling under the weight of truth, and for the first time in years, I felt a rush of freedom buzz through my veins. Frank. I shouted, voice steady now. The life you are chasing, the hold you think you have on me, is gone. I refuse to be trapped by the specters of choices past. I deserve peace, so does everyone here. The realization surged in me like a phoenix rising from the ashes. The past was a story we could choose to rewrite. The shadows seemed to recede as a new dawn began to creep in. One by one, the faces of the people around me transformed, the weight of fear replaced by hope, transforming the air in a palpable exchange. Frank's eyes widened, bewilderment slowly overtaking fury. This was a reckoning more than I ever anticipated. You'll regret this, he hissed, but I could see the fracture in his confidence, the unraveling threads of control attempting to hold. Not today, I replied firmly, heart pounding with newfound resolution. With every passing moment, the warmth of solidarity flourished, stemming from the innocent child beside me and the fierce love emanating from Sarah. Together, we were crafting a tapestry far richer than any torment. And just as I took that first step towards the light, realization hit me, a profound and bittersweet truth. The past would always be a part of my journey, but it no longer defined my life. I would hold its lessons close, as stones polished by the relentless tide, but it was my present and future I chose to shape, a love born of resilience. As I took Sarah's hand, I could almost hear the echoes of laughter and warmth, weaving us tighter as we stepped across the threshold to a brighter tomorrow. I felt it deep in my chest, a truth so profound it rang like a bell, a promise whispered in the recesses of my heart, and as we crossed into the light of a new dawn, I knew this was not just a conclusion but the beginning of our beautiful, courageous journey together, ready to embrace what awaited us. We are finally free. I said, my voice carrying through the shadows left behind. And in that moment, I saw the world anew. I was not escaping, I was finally stepping into my truth. I had chosen love, and nothing would take that away from me. Sometimes, the darkest nights lead to the most brilliant dawns.